Boom, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? I'm General Moses, and welcome to another episode of Dream Chasers, where hustle meets house. Today, we are joined by the one and only Lex Luca, who is a producer and a whole bunch of other cool stuff that I'm figuring out day by day about his background. I didn't know, and you guys are going to learn this here with me today. Lex is someone that I've really enjoyed his music even before I got into the game, I would say. And there's one record which is funny because it's like a song from a compilation. I think he probably knows I'm going to bring this up at least once on the interview here, but one of his songs, Gold Beard, look it up. It's like a Amsterdam 2017 compilation, CR2 Records. And you know what, Lex, because of that song, I do have a vision for my life. Like one day I will have a green and gold Rolls Royce, and I'll say to myself, that's mine.
That's mine. Yeah, that is a bit. You know what? I made that tune with a good friend of mine who's produced under the name Joseph Jordan, and we just made that on a hazy night in his studio, and we just ended up finding the sample. It was based off YouTube, a sample from some pimp. Basically, this is like a pimp in some big speech, and we ripped that, and basically that became the tune.
That's great. I obviously listened to the record numerous times now, and I'm like, man, I wonder where they got this. Like, what is this from? It's from a movie or whatever. So, famous pimp on YouTube, basically.
Yeah, it's not an activity we should be condoning, but man, he did have a great speech, didn't he? He's that great.
Yeah, but anyways, man, great to have you here. Could you, just for those who aren't familiar with like your story and your background, tell us, kind of how you got to where you're at today?
Well, I don't know how long you got really, but yeah, my name's my artist name is Lex Luca. I have been a music producer and a DJ. Feels like all my life. I've been a DJ since I was about 15. I had a musical upbringing before that, and yeah, discovered electronic music when I was about 15, and went on this big journey. Basically, just like absolutely love house music. Always have, like loads of music really, to be honest, but just always gravitate back towards that sound. And yeah,
you played violin, right? It was violin and drums as well.
I did. I have a very classical upbringing. When I was super young. So stories. My mum wanted to sign me up for piano lessons, and piano was all full up. So she just was like, "What about the violin?" There was space in the class, so I started doing violin lessons, and yeah, never loved it because I never loved the music that we were taught really, but it gave me a really good musical education really. So yeah, really great musical theory, even though I never loved carrying that violin around. It wasn't the coolest thing at school.
Is there anything about the records that you've produced where you kind of look at them and you realize, wow, this actually started with the violin?
Honestly, I can't have a direct, for me at least, I don't see a direct correlation between the violin and the music I make, apart from the fact that I have that musical theory, musical education. So, I understand that things should be in key, and I get chords and progressions and that kind of stuff. But I don't think there's a kind of direct correlation. I don't necessarily, don't play my own strings when I put it in, in a breakdown kind of thing. But
yeah. Well, one thing I noticed about you immediately once I started making music I was like, man, I think he has a podcast too. And then one day I think I saw you interviewing Mark Knight from Tour. And I'm like, oh wow, I got to go check out your show, because I'll be honest, that's the only episode I saw. I was like, oh, he's interviewing Mark. Like, what's going on here? But tell us about your podcast. I mean, I'm just curious, who you're interviewing, how you've been able to leverage it, because that's kind of what we're doing here too.
Yeah, I mean, podcasts are, obviously very much mainstream these days, but I have a podcast which is called Open Door Talks, and Door is DAW, so makes it, a podcast essentially for music producers, singers, songwriters. And it was born actually because I launched some songwriting camps back in 2020. And from there, I just wanted to help music producers. I've had brilliant access to the music industry because I've worked as a radio producer, and what I found was there were so many artists who just had no experience of basically big time artists. So long story short, I launched a podcast, and it was, the whole ethos was just to speak to superstar DJs, music producers, artists, songwriters, and just find out the real life, their own real experiences about how they got to where they got to, because there's so many smoke and mirrors in the industry that certainly I know as a music producer, it's really tough to become a really, really, to learn the skills to know to make music really, really well. And there's a whole industry of people around a lot of the superstars that are, helping them elevate themselves. And certainly when I was a music producer, I've spent so much time thinking, how is everyone doing it and whatever. And I just thought, it'd be really nice to know from the actual people who are doing it, how they did do it, because it's, no more and more these days, it's not just about the music. There's so much more that goes into it. So yeah, names I've had, I've been lucky enough to have people like Mark Knight on it. Felix from Basement Jaxx, Roger Sanchez, who I work with. Who else? Camden Cox. I should remember this. Camden Cox, who's a brilliant singer. My mind's gone blank now. Who else? DJ called Cuppy. Steve Bug, Junior Sanchez,
Nice.
Louisa.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Made by Pete, Kidnap Kid, Flash Mob.
Nice.
Yeah, loads of people. It's kind of gravitated more towards house because that's kind of more my speciality, but I do want it to be slightly wider as well, and just to kind of get that kind of full 360 angle of everything that goes on. I had Wes from Defected as well.
You said you had Louisa, who you're referring to, is that the vocalist who I don't want to say she's a vocalist, but I know she does a lot of spoken word. I think she's French.
Yeah, she's not French, but she lives in France. Yeah, she's essentially a techno artist. But yeah, brilliant. Just kind of.
Yeah, she's welcome. I mean, that'd actually be a dream interview for me. I gotta follow up with you on that, because she's someone who, before I got into this stuff, I listened to a lot of her work. Nice, man. Well, what are you working on?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, she's wicked. She's just just really inspiring, and just someone who's someone who's just like really free with their art, and I just love that about her. Yeah, she's wicked.
Very artistic from what I observed. As everyone, all the other names you mentioned are too. What are you working on right now? Because I know with your own music, I was going through your profile before our interview. I don't think you've had a release for a few years, but I know you're busy. I know a lot of people know who you are. And so similar to what you were saying, as far as like getting to know people who are the ones helping and supporting some of these bigger name artists, I'm kind of just assuming that's kind of where you are spending a lot of your time right now. But I'd love to know kind of what you're working on at the moment.
The last kind of big EP that I had was an EP on Snatch, which came out in 2022, I think.
Which I just added both of those records to my playlist. So
thank you. Yeah, I mean that one did. I mean, I'd actually made that a couple of years earlier. I made that EP, and it took a while because one of them had a big sample in it, so it took a bit of time to get cleared. And then there was COVID, and I didn't really want it to come out during that time because there were two big club records. But it came out at, in some ways, a really good time because I mean, Pete Tong played it a lot and supported it really well, and it got some front page coverage at Beatport, and it kind of took me a bit by surprise because the label were like, taking 2 years, then 6 weeks out they were like, right, we're ready to release it, and I was like, I've just had a baby, I'm not ready, kind of thing. I wasn't ready with like more music,
of course,
but I was obviously super happy with the success of that. And then, to be honest, if I'm super honest, I feel like COVID kind of hit me in a funny way, and I've kind of retracted a little bit. I kind of came out of a management deal, and then it's taken me a bit of time in a weird way, partly because of just life stuff, had a baby and just, stuff happens, right? So, I mean, right now I'm in an exciting place because I've got myself beautiful studio in my garden, and I've, been working, behind the scenes, I guess, on some music. I'm just getting ready to release some more music, basically. So just going to push it back. We've got my record label in tune. So the plan is just to start releasing some music and just get back on the hustle for some DJ gigs. I just basically stopped doing that. And, I was doing that a lot before COVID, essentially, in the years before that. And now I'm just kind of super motivated and kind of got my head a bit more straight. If I'm honest, my head just wasn't in a great space. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of feels like it's kind of just kind of come back now to like, some work I've done myself, and just to like, sometimes it's just about energy. I love that Erykah Badu has this amazing quote where she's kind of got this, you have times when you're downloading, which is when you're, putting out your music and you're out there and you're gigging and everything else. But there's other times, periods of reflection where you're uploading. So I really kind of took that on myself of actually like sometimes you just need these times when you're not necessarily like all the time out there. And I was doing a lot of that before COVID, and yeah, so now I'm really excited, and yeah, kind of feel like in a much stronger place. I think the musical world has changed. Since that, the 2 years that everyone was locked up. Whoa, shit. Sorry, I'm crashing
You're
down.
good.
Um, but yeah, the musical world and the landscape has changed in a few different ways. I think so. Part of it was just me kind of just maybe thinking and overthinking like where I fit and what I'm doing and kind of what space I want to be in. Some of it was upskilling and just kind of getting, feeling a bit more confident with my own music production. Um, so yeah, and social media as well. Like I was never really loved social media, and then I've just kind of had a bit of a word with myself. I feel like I had a bit of an existential crisis last year of like, I'm not releasing any music, I'm not DJing, like what am I doing? I've become a dad, like what's my life about? And I love being a dad. I've got like the best,
Of course.
it's just an amazing experience. I absolutely love it. But there's also like a rebalance to kind of find in your life, and to find out how that's going to work with the opposite, which is the party lifestyle. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I've got a couple of tracks that I've just literally just sent off to be mastered. So yeah, but kind of in that phase now. Just like that's kind of when you contacted me to be on your podcast, I was like, it's brilliant timing because I'm kind of in a good, in a kind of
So let me
place.
see if I can guess. Then your baby what, maybe 3?
He's just about to turn 4. Yeah.
That's her 4. Okay.
Mm.
Yep, that sounds about right. Because my daughter is about to turn 1, and my son is 2.5, and I keep saying to myself,
Mm.
I'd love to be out there doing gigs right now, but if I'm being real if I'm making sure that my wife's not going to kill me, I think they both got to be like at least 2. So
Yeah.
2026 is like I mean, if I might get a chance to do some gigs this year, it should be awesome. But you got to keep it realistic. The challenge that I see, and one thing I want to avoid as much as possible, because I'm sure just like me, plenty of DJs and artists who go out there and have kids, and then you just never like really see them again. I love what like Mark, for example, has been able to do as a dad and still be out there doing what he loves and running the family at the same time.
Yeah, I mean the touring family as well as his own family. It's like, I
Yeah.
mean, like, it's a challenge, isn't it? And I mean, you speak to not people in the music industry, but any busy parent. It's like there's a payoff, right? So you can be busy, and you can or you can look after your kids. It's difficult to do both. What I will say is the last 4 years, like I know I've really been present for my boy, and I'm really proud of that. and
Definitely.
um and it's really important because the stereotype is when people go, oh, where's the time gone? You just go, and it does. The day by day doesn't necessarily go by fast. Like some days can really drag on. When it's, especially if it's a tough night or whatever. But it gets easier as they get older. But also, like, the time when you look back on it, you're like, wow, the time goes real quick. Like it passes, and it puts your own life into perspective because you're like, well, if he's 2 now, and then I'm going to be this age, and then all of a sudden now he's 4, and that means if that time's gone that quick, the next 4 years is going to go even quicker, and then he'll be 8, and then he's like, do you know what I mean? Like it's mad. It's actually mad. So, there's sometimes, there's obviously music is like, so, it's part of my how do you say it? Let's edit this bit. Music is part of me. It's my life. I can't even say it. Music is
The
part of me. Do
DNA.
you know what I mean? It's my part of my DNA, right? Um, but then so is my boy, right? So it's like, okay, how do we find that balance? And
Uh,
yeah, right now I'm like, I feel like I'm in a good place, but I didn't. I think if I'd been traveling and whatever, I probably. I mean, I have traveled when and I do miss him. It's like even if I go to Ibiza for 4 days, I'm like, oh, I kind of want to go. It kind of sounds a bit silly, but you kind of want to go see him. So, um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like, especially with you, you've got two under, you had 2 under 2 basically, which is basically that's when apparently real parenting starts. I mean, you must, how are you finding it?
I mean, I'm obviously, to your point, I'm loving it. Um, I do little things like mainly when I'm watching both kids now, and my daughter who's just starting to walk. It gets better once they can walk. I mean, even with my son as a dad, right? For all the moms out there, I don't know, I can't speak to that, but as a dad, for me, like once my son started walking, now my daughter, like, because then you can kind of take them and do stuff, and so like
Mm.
I put on, just put on the Bluetooth speaker, queue up, some killer records, press play. We got the disco lights, portable disco lights that we kind of take throughout the house. I give them both. They're still like young enough to take a bath together, so I get them in the bath, turn the lights off in the bathroom, put the disco lights on, crank up the Bluetooth, and like they're just loving it. I'm loving it. It's like the closest to a club I can kind of get right
That's
now.
brilliant.
So it's like it's a perfect it's perfect for the moment. And I do look forward to the day where I've seen clips of DJs that are parents where they have their toddler kind of there with them behind the decks, and just I want them to feel that too growing up. And my dad was really big into music for me, and that's so to your point, it's in my DNA. It's already in their DNA.
Mm.
This is what we love to do, and yeah, I guess whatever I can do to make that musical impression on them and see them do something cool with it one day. It's like
I love that
one
idea
more.
actually of making the bath time into a party time. It's like that's I might try that. But I remember, yeah, actually it was Junior Sanchez. He actually sent me one. We were chatting on WhatsApp or whatever, and he sent me a couple of demos. Um, and Cassius, my boy's named Cassius, and he was eating, and I just put it on my phone, and straight away, just on the first 16 bars of a house track is just the beat, and I put it on my phone, and he just started like dancing, and I was like, yes, he loves house music, and he comes into my studio, and he's like, Daddy, can I make music? Can we make music? And like, or can we make
Oh,
noise?
nice.
He just loves just like making, just I just turn on the synth, and he just like presses the buttons on the keyboard, just loves like the different sounds. It's just incredible to watch. It's like yeah, so I'm just looking forward to just wondering what the best age for him to I've got an Ableton push there. I was like, I think if I load that onto some drums, maybe that'll be his first entry point into making a beat. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a real blessing. It's a real blessing to have children, to be to be a parent, and some people choose not to, and that's totally fine as well. But it's just something that certainly on a personal level, like I've really really always wanted to have a child, and yeah, not everyone can have children. We've had miscarriages and stuff, so it's like it is a blessing. If you want to go down that route. So
for
I'm
sure.
just embracing that, and then back to the original question, which was basically just getting ready now. Really excited actually, just to get the music out there, and yeah, just get back on the hustle for some gigs, and then
Yeah.
just going to push it from there.
What's the I guess the vision for your podcast as well? Because I'm just sure it's opening doors for you as you get ready to make this comeback as well. What do you see with Open DAW or
Open
Open?
door, yeah. Well, to be honest, I mean, it ties in with the songwriting camps. I went a bit. I'm basically just in the process of developing that as a kind of education platform. And I know there's lots of other education platforms out there, so I'm not trying to compete. I'm just trying to see how I can just add value without trying to be like another tool room or another, like Syntho is the other one that's doing really well at the moment. Shout out to Josh Baker, who's like smashing it. So I'm going to be doing some more writing camps basically, and also some. I want to be helping music producers, but not so much on the technical side of it, because there's so much of that out there, but a bit more on the kind of the mental aspect of it, really like building out the habits, looking at what might be in the way. So a bit more on the coaching side of it to really help people, because people have their own blocks, I mean, I've certainly gone through my own blocks myself, but I'm sure brilliant music producers that are in their bedroom and they're not like finishing their tracks. They've got amazing ideas and they're just not finishing them. So yeah, first idea that I want to do, I want to help music producers finish tracks. And then at the same time, I say, and then the next phase will be developing some more writing camps, to just to help artists who are kind of having those kind of issues that a lot of us face. And then
Yeah.
the podcast is lined up with that. So just more guests, more people, more music producers, and more artists. Everyone's got their own story, so it's really interesting to find out how people develop their own skills. There's obviously common themes, but people, it's really interesting just to learn from how different people did it themselves. And people are it's also interesting not just to hear from the super established guys like the Mark Knights and the Rogers of the world, but also people who are a bit newer into the into breaking through. Like, even speaking to Made by Pete, who is an amazing producer, but I spoke to him just after he'd got his first Essential mix. And so, that was just after he'd, had this amazing summer, essentially his first kind of huge summer of gigs. So people that are a bit earlier on, in their kind of like in their career is also interesting because they're a bit fresher to it as well. So yeah, just kind of, I don't know what it sounds like. It might sound a bit weird, but I just kind of like to help people at the moment. It's just certainly, it's not an easy game, this whole music world. And, we're kind of, so, everyone's going on about algorithms and social media. And, if you look at Instagram and or even Threads, and there's all these people telling you what you should be doing. It's like, it's really boring. It's like, because it's not the answer. Do you know what I mean? It's like, ultimately you need to be my opinion is you need to be focusing on your craft and getting really good at finishing music, and the rest
Yeah.
should follow after that.
Yeah. Speaking with, as I mentioned, Graham Farmer on the show recently, he has had the ability to work with a lot of pretty big names now back in their early days. Like he talked about before, like really before it. I think it might have even been, and our team can cross reference me on this one, but I think it was like before Solardo had ever even released a record. They sent him like 10 of their first tracks. And so I asked him, like, when you look back and you see people like that who then went on to make it, what do you notice is like different about them than anyone else? And he was kind of like, well, plain and simple, when you see elite talent, you realize that, and not in a cocky way, you realize all they're really focused on is themselves. Like they're just really not concerned about like what other people are doing. I'm sure they're paying attention to trends, and again, they're not in a cocky way. It's like they're just doing their thing. He used James Hype as an example too, because obviously, if you go through enough James Hype clips on whatever platform, you'll see like the haters in the comments. And he's like, sometimes some of these haters are like actually really talented people, but they're wasting their time. Like basically, you comment on a James Hype post, you're basically just showing your audience, hey, here's this other guy, even if you're hating on it. I'm like, yeah, it's a really good point. But he's like, do you think like James is probably just sitting there laughing and focusing on what he's doing? I'm like, okay, that's really good advice. So
yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, I think James is a fantastic example of someone who's absolutely smashed it. And he's the way that he is, smashed. He's a brilliant DJ, clearly a fantastic DJ. He's clearly put in the work. He's came from being a local DJ. Clearly can make music. Well, can put ideas together. He's had a couple of huge hits, and yeah, certainly. I think he kind of what really blew him up after his hits was doing loads of live streams during lockdown. He's a real, and he puts on a great show. So whether you love him or hate him or like his music or not, like he puts on a great show for the audience that he has. And that's probably really, really important as well, to really know your audience. He's also really good at telling stories online. He nails the social media, not because he puts out content all the time, but he tells stories really well. So he hooks you in with his content. He's smart. Like, it's not just a random guy who's made it. He's a very smart guy as well.
And he's built a solid, to your point, a solid team around him now too, that help put out that level of product. So
and he's definitely ground it out. But certainly I've worked with a lot of what you call elite talent on as a radio producer. And yeah, I mean, it's one really important thing is to know your audience. And yeah, you need to focus on yourself, and because there's an audience for you, as long as you kind of stick to your guns and you're not trying to copy someone else. There's no need. There's already someone else doing that. And you might as well be authentically you.
What about tell us about your label, because that was also something I wasn't fully aware of until we had this in the calendar. I started doing my research. So In Tune. Right.
Yeah, I launched my record label in 2017. I had a couple of big releases on CR2 and a few other releases actually, but had some good success on CR2. And I was just had a few EPs and I was shopping them about and probably not getting onto the labels that I wanted to. But essentially, what happened was on the day I sent it out to a big label, and I'd also sent it to Pete Tong. And on the day that the big label did get back to me, credit to them, they did get back to me and said no. Pete Tong played it on Radio 1. And I was like, obviously that was like gutted on the daytime. I did the label were like, they said no. I was like, oh, that's a shame. But then that night, Pete played it, and I was like, oh, hang on a second, like maybe I don't need the label. Maybe I could just do it myself. And not to say like because I respect all the labels. I still want to be
Of
on the
course.
labels because they it's brilliant for a number of reasons. But I just felt like essentially that I wanted to take control of my release schedule. Because if you're not getting the feedback from that you want from other labels, don't let them be the gatekeepers. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was essentially the driving force behind it. I just wanted to have control over my release schedule, and so if there was going to be a gap in my release schedule, I could just fill that gap with my own tracks on my own label. And then it just developed. So every year, on the anniversary, I got commissioned a big, let's say big, what you would say an elite artist. So to do a remix. So Harry Romero did a remix, Junior Sanchez did one, and did DJ Sneak under his alias. Tripmasters did one. And then to be honest, the economics of running the label was just like a little bit tough, if I'm honest. And when you're putting out music that you're not kind of going for mainstream releases. So since 2020, I haven't really, I've put out a few other bits, but there's started to release a few other tracks of other artists, but it was just becoming quite an expensive thing to do since lockdown. So I haven't released other people's music on the label, but certainly something I'd like to do at some point. But certainly again, it's great for me to now be able to come back now and just again not have to wait for other labels and just release
Right.
on Intune
Are
to
you
start
are
with.
you well, did you say you're gonna have some releases on the label in June?
From April, yeah, I'll be doing.
Okay.
Yeah, the plan is to do monthly releases. So just because we've got so many tools ourselves these days. Obviously, you've got socials and everything else. So it's like just to do that. And I think the other thing with labels is that they're all, there's we all want to be on certain labels, right? We can't pretend we don't want to be, right? But those labels have a sound. Now, cool, I could try and make my music try and fit that sound, or I can just have my own sound. And
Yeah.
I'd love those labels. I still would love to be on those labels, but right now, it's probably they're not going to sign me because I'm not making music that is exactly like their sound. It's obviously got influences, and it might fit into a set that would fit with those kind of records. But yeah, again, it's like it was that kind of stylistic thing as well of like, as a producer, I'm like, I do like exploring different sounds and different, go down different routes. So sometimes I might come up with different records. And so in theory, if I wanted to put out a record that wasn't, that might sound a bit different, I could also, put it out on my label as well, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we got to bring this one down for a landing, but before we do, I guess on the note of your label in tune, correct? It's the name of the label. Is the demo box open? Is there somewhere people can submit
yeah, I mean,
records?
like, more than welcome to hit me up on Instagram is probably the best way. Or you can just email me, Lex at lexluca.com, and just tell me what you're about and send me some music. I'd love to hear from it, and if I
There
can
we go.
support it, I'd love to. It is difficult as a label because you can't really do a huge amount. Let me not say that. Just Mark, you can edit that bit just from lexluca.com. Um,
um, cool.
yeah,
So lexluca.com is also the best way to get in touch with you.
yeah, Lex at lexluca.com.
There we go. Send those demos to Lex. And yeah, Lex, before we hop out of here, any just kind of words of wisdom or rules that you feel like you've followed to get you where you're at today that our audience could learn from?
It's a good question. I mean, the first thing that actually comes to mind, something that's been going on in my head recently, is something that Mark Knight shared with me. Is just like, know exactly who you are as an artist and as a producer, and just really kind of celebrate that. I think there's a few different things that really come to mind, I guess. Let me start that one again.
Mark, you got your work cut out for you now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different things that come to mind. The first thing is probably something that Mark Knight said to me, which is just to really know who you are and to really celebrate that. I think patience and hard work are probably two things that are really, really simple things in a way that you can really focus on yourself. got to be patient. There's no need to just really, really go to yearn for that success right away, because and then hard work. You just got to but you do have to put in the hours to become a really good music producer, and it's worth putting in the hard work, as a DJ, to become a really good DJ. And yeah, I think ultimately become so good at your craft that they can't ignore you. Look at someone like Josh Baker. I think he's absolutely smashed it over the years, and he's been grinding and grinding and grinding. Be patient and hustle hard.
There you go. Perfectly tied into with our outro here. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Lex Luca, as well. Thank you all for investing your most valuable resource with us here today, your time. This is Dream Chasers, where hustle meets house. Our show is brought to you by House of Hustle. You go to houseofhustletd.com for more information. That's houseofhustletd.com. Check out the sample packs, check out the merch, all that good stuff. And most importantly, don't forget to go follow Lex Luca on social media, or you can just go to his website, lexluca.com. Everything else is in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into another episode. Remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.